This is in response to Dr. Paul Krugman's article in the New York Times on Friday, April 17th, 2015, that Old-Time Economics. Dr. Krugman goes to point out, and I want to emphasize how important it is that he keeps up this concept of what is going on deep in terms of economics. And right now, the United States still has not fully recovered from the Great Recession of 2007, 2008. However, we are much, much further beyond what Europe is in terms of their recovery from the Great Recession. And from an economic standpoint, there is a reason why the United States is further ahead. And it's not about anything that our friends on the Republican have advised us to do, but it has to deal with what has gone on in terms of how do you recover from a economic recession, depression, recession. This was a recession. And Dr. Krugman goes to point out that there are standard economic policies as to how you recover. And guess what? The Europeans didn't do that. They had some new economic thinking that they thought would kickstart their economy and get it back going again. And so Europe rejected what we would call standard Keynesian economic theories in terms of about a recovery. They had their own new and improved economic theories, policies by a number of people, including someone from Harvard, that took on what we would call the expansionary austerity, meaning austerity, you cut back all kinds of government spending, and all of a sudden, then all kinds of people have more money, and all of a sudden there's going to be this huge expansion, similar to the Republican concept of the Laffer, isn't this the Laffer curve, whereas less taxes equals more economic growth and equals more taxes paying back because you're making so much more money, which has never, ever proven itself. So we had this expansionary austerity that was going on in Europe, and thankfully that's not what happened here. Even though we have had austerity measures, they're not nearly as wretched as what was going on in Europe. And remember, if Obama wasn't in office, we would have had 10 times the amount of austerity measures. Because remember, the Republicans tried to shut down the government. They wanted to, even now, they just voted to cut they call it death taxes, I would call it the inherited wealth taxes, of let's say, a couple thousand Americans that would increase the budget deficit by $269 billion every 10 years. They decided to cut that for the wealthiest stinking Americans, and they have no offsets for it. But that's their austerity measures. So what we found out, and of course, what happened in this last 6 or 7 years? The White House, with the Federal Reserve, have done standard Keynesian types of things. They kept interest rates low, even though they were buying bonds. And remember, Europe raised interest rates around 2011 to disastrous effects. So we have not seen an increase in inflation. We have not seen an increase in interest rates. We have had, these terms that I don't fully understand, quantitative easing, and another thing, buybacks, etc. But guess what? The United States has shown steady growth during the Obama administration. I believe it was, 50 straight months of increase in employment. So there's a lot to be said for that. And of course, we know that in Europe there are a lot of countries that are just getting out of it. They won't recover still for more and more years. Greece is still a problem. There were terrible problems in Spain, in Ireland, and of course, I think Italy's having problems now. Greece was just absolutely terrible. So, but what does it say? It says that the Federal Reserve and the White House were doing the right thing. They were following standard Keynesian economic policies. Europe was not. Europe is paying for it. These new, to put it too bluntly, these new economic theories suck. Right? Now remember that this is exactly what the Republicans have been advocating for the last 6 or 7 years. They're screaming that inflation is going to go sky high. They're screaming that interest rates are going to go sky high, that we've got to cut, and we've got to cut to the bone. And now remember, not only did Republicans vote against the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, but they're also advocating tremendously huge decreases in all government agencies. And guess what? That's not going to kickstart the economy, because we have the proof of that from Europe. But they're still going to advocate that, because they're going to say these types of things that seem on the surface, when you hear them say it, that it makes sense. But behind the whole thing, their economic theory, their economic policies suck.